Never forget your scientific heritage, because it's all about the strongest science that will prevail.
You must work in such a way that you don't only enrich yourself, you also enrich society.
Patient centricity, always having the patient being the most important, is something that dates back to our founders.
What makes a company thrive for 100 years? Ambition? Luck? Or maybe even love? The creation of Novo Nordisk is a story of 6 people, their ideas, their passions, and their conflicts. Nobel laureate August Kohl, his wife, doctor and scientist Maria Kohl, diabetes researcher and doctor H.C. Herdorn, pharmacist and manufacturer August Kongsted, mechanical engineer Harold Peterson, and his brother, pharmacist Thorvald Peterson. But it all starts with a love story. When young and promising doctor of physiology August Kohl met medical student Maria Jørgensen.
The first time he saw her, he had this impression that women were not very good physicians. But very quickly when he saw Marie, he changed his mind because she was really gentle and very intelligent, and he fell in love with her and invited her for tea. But he had to wait for quite a long time to get married because Marie would not marry before she had finished her education. She wanted that really badly and she worked hard for it, and she was the 4th woman to have an advanced medical degree in Denmark.
I so dearly hope that you too can understand that my work also means a great deal to me. If you love me, as I love you, as I so fervently hope that you do, then I think you will understand me and help me.
You have your work and goals, just as I have mine. I believe this is good. It will not be one-sided. I believe we can take each other by the hand and in many ways help one another.
I think it was a very unusual marriage. They were partners in crime. They were truly a scientific couple that probably discussed more science than anything else around the table in the evening. She had also done science together with August Kohl, actually. Such a strong female scientist who was able to match her husband in many regards.
1920 was a milestone. August Kohl won the Nobel Prize in Medicine, and Maria started showing symptoms of diabetes, a death sentence back then. In 1922, when she accompanied August on a lecture tour in the US, she fell ill. At the same time, insulin had been discovered at the University of Toronto.
It was actually Marie who heard about it on the trip to North America and convinced her husband, August, that he should go to Toronto. So Marie had a pivotal role in actually urging her husband to change the course of the Nobel laureate trip and visit the university, talk to the leader of the team, MacLeod, and ultimately ended up with the license to produce insulin in Scandinavia.
Even though she's described as very gentle, I'm pretty sure she was also persistent. If it hadn't been for her, he would not have reached out, that's for sure.
Once in Toronto, August's clout was of vital importance.
It was very much depending on the Canadians' trust in August Kohl. He was a Nobel laureate, and they really put their trust in him.
I think the relationship that he built over just 2 or 3 days at University of Toronto was one where it was clear to MacLeod and the team around him that this was a true scientist. Who better to take insulin to Europe and Scandinavia than a scientist like the Nobel laureate August Kohl? I think he came across as very trustworthy and seeking the truth and science rather than profits.
The task at hand was to develop a safe and clean production of insulin for treatment of diabetes in Scandinavia. But they needed help. While still traveling, Maria reached out to her own doctor, H.C. Herdorn.
Herdorn was a doctor, and He started as a general practitioner, but very soon he became an expert within diabetes, and he had his own clinic in Copenhagen. He was also treating Marie. Both Marie and August were convinced that they would need Dr. Hagedorn in producing insulin.
He saw his patient wasting away with type 1 diabetes, dying within a year or so after diagnosis. So for him to suddenly realize that he could be part of an adventure, creating, if not a cure, then something that would make people live decades longer than otherwise must have been a fantasy. So he was totally dedicated from the beginning.
Upon the Kroghs' return to Denmark, they had no time to lose.
August and Marie Krogh returned in December 1922, and already the day after, August and Dr. Hagedorn began the development of insulin, so they were very fast.
They acquired pancreatic glands from pigs and fish and set up a laboratory in Hagedorn's basement.
You have to realize that pancreas is the gland, the organ that makes insulin. This is a very sensitive organ because you have lots of enzymes inside it. So you have to know how to handle the organ, the gland. You have to know how to do the first kind of mincing part of it, and then how to extract the insulin from the rest. And to find the right recipe and fine-tune it, they had no clue, because what they had seen with the Toronto scientists was still very early days. So yes, they came back with a license and a recipe, but they had to really make sure that they refined it so much that they would honestly dare and offer it to people with type 1 diabetes. Already in March, I believe, they were able to treat the first person. So this is from having a recipe to treating a patient in a matter of around 3 months. That is incredible, and due to two true pioneers. The very first injection was not that big a success because the patient ultimately died afterwards. However, the next series of patients were highly successful. So actually very quickly, they had the basis for what became, the Nordisk company.
They now had a treatment that worked, but they needed to produce it in large quantities.
They didn't have much money, and they needed to scale up. So they actually sought the founder and pharmacist of the Leo Pharmaceutical Company, as we call it today. In those days, Løvens Kemiske Fabrik. And he was called Kongsted.
And he was really good at standardization and quality, and he didn't have that big ego like August Krogh and Dr. Hagedorn had.
And they discussed with him whether to co-found this new company. And he was okay with doing that. But amazingly enough, he never had an interest in actually financially being really part of it.
They could use his factory at Leo Pharma, but in return he wanted his name on all the products. Therefore, you might have wondered, why is it called Insulin Leo? But that was because of Kongsted's involvement.
They called their new company Nordisk Insulinlaboratorium, and its mission was to make insulin available to patients.
When August was at University of Toronto, it became clear that they were willing to give him the license more or less for free. The only prerequisite was that this should never be a matter of generating profits. And he did that by creating, together with his co-founders, the foundation back in 1924, already a year after the company was founded.
The profit would go to the foundation, and the profit would be used for scientific purposes.
And that means that the foundation has been there for 100 years, almost. It has strongly supported excellent science in the Danish community and now in the global community. It has also meant that the ownership of the company resides with the foundation. Today, the Novo Nordisk Foundation controls 78% of the votes in the company.
Altruism and science aside, Nordisk was a business with customers, production facilities, and employees. Among them, Harald Petersen, August Krogh's longtime lab engineer, and his brother, Torvald.
One of the incredible questions is, how did the brothers wind up in this? They came from a fishing hamlet in Jutland. One was trained as a pharmacist, and the other one was trained as a blacksmith. When you looked at the two brothers, you could almost sense that thing. Harald was shorter, little more round, heavy-set fellow. Torvald was an elegant gentleman-like type.
One was more academic, the other made things happen.
Harald was an incredible inventor of all kinds of gadgets, and he assisted August Krogh at his lab for his experiments in animal physiology.
Harald was invited to be part of this new project. They realized that they needed a pharmacist or a chemist, and then Harald suggested that his brother, Thorvald Pedersen, he would be the right person. Thorvald came with a lot of ideas, but Hadorn couldn't accept that, and it came to a conflict between these two. And only after half a year of employment, Dr. Hadorn told Thorvald that he couldn't continue in the company. He was laid off.
Probably because he realized that Thorvald was pretty smart when it came to optimizing the formulation of insulin. Who knows, maybe he was even smarter than Hagedorn. And I don't think he liked to be outcompeted in any way.
All we know is that basically Thorvald was fired by Hadorn, and Harald said, when my brother isn't good enough for you, I'm not good enough for you. And August Krogh then asked Harald, what are you going to do? And Harald said, we're going to make insulin. And August Krogh said, good luck. He didn't believe they could do it.
I think if anything, August Krogh being a Nobel laureate and Hagedorn being a medical doctor, up against a pharmacist and a person who doesn't have an academic degree, they literally didn't think they would have the wherewithal and the academic acumen to compete with the Nordisk, but they did.
They were determined to show Hadorn, we can do it ourselves.
The two brothers formed a new company called Novo Therapeutisk Laboratorium.
Harald and Thorvald had a sister who was fighting for women's rights early in the 1900s. She was the one that got equal pay for women and male teachers. And for that, she was given a financial award for her peers. She invested that in Harald and Thorvald's business.
In the beginning, it was very much a family business, and they worked from the basement of Harald's villa. And the whole family was engaged in bringing the pharmacies the medicine or going to the market and buy pancreases.
They had to prove themselves against Nordisk with Hadorn at the helm, after August had returned to his physiology research.
Nordisk was the first Danish company to manufacture and market insulin. That gave them an incredible advantage in hospitals, with doctors, with academia. And that meant that when Harald and Thorvald brought their insulins to market, they had to look elsewhere.
They early on saw the need for literally reaching out to other countries and honestly making profits so that they could grow the company, maybe even create new products over time.
The different skill sets of Harald and Thorvald gave them a very innovative approach.
They were a unique team.
In 1925, Thorvald, as the first in the world, could make liquid insulin. But how do you deliver liquid insulin? Well, Harald knew how to deliver liquid insulin by creating a Novo syringe, where he could fill the ready-to-use liquid insulin in there, and it was ready to be injected.
It meant that patients were able to make certain that they got the same dose. The ability to live correctly with your insulin regimen was upheld.
But maybe Novo's most important asset was the company culture instilled by Harald and Thorvald.
And they had a very special spirit. They really, truly cared for the employees.
They were brought up in a family that was not wealthy. They were constantly lacking finances, and they really supported each other. So they had a social conscience right from the beginning. And as their company became profitable rather fast, actually, they felt that they were like family. They had a strong responsibility for their colleagues. Whether it was a woman who had just gotten a child and needed a slight increase in pay to make sure she could feed her child, whether it was people who, had problems at a given point in time, they would step in and help.
And it became a very different company culturally, with shorter power distances and closer relations. Every time Thorvald was allowed to hire a chemist, that was what people with longer educations would call, Harald was allowed to hire an hourly paid person. There was a balance of people with long and short education, and that gave us very special feeling in the company.
But the respect shown towards the employees at Novo did not extend to their competitors at Nordisk.
There was no love lost between those two groups. I think that we regarded Nordisk Gentofte as some stuck-up, academic snobs, and they regarded us as street fighters, and lower-class types. It was unreal, really, because it was so deeply personally rooted. Both companies were making fine products, but they didn't treat each other with respect, the founders and the later company management teams.
In the following decades, Novo grew to be much larger than Nordisk. It was clear that Hedorn was not focused on the business side of insulin.
Hagedorn was happy doing his science, creating constantly more pure insulins and offering them more locally. Something that shouldn't really be a big commercial success, but something where there would be enough money from the proceeds to send back into the foundation.
As a diabetes researcher, though, he was a giant. He developed new types of insulin and founded Steno Memorial Hospital, which specialized in diabetes care.
He was probably the first in Europe who literally saw the needs of the patients in terms of their daily life, in terms of their diet, and how that should come into the context of the insulin regime that he would offer them. He actually himself treated patients, but he was known by them as an extremely competent doctor, but also one who knew what he wanted from the patients.
A doctor at that time was kind of the god, and he really fell into that role.
De fleste antog ham jo for at være noget af det skrappeste og noget af det hårdeste. Der var ingen undskyldninger. Hvis der blev gjort noget forkert, så var han rasende. Når man hørte, at Dr. Hedorn kom på stuegang, så begyndte man jo at pudse gelinderne, og alt skulle være fuldstændig perfekt. Og når så han trådte ind ad døren, så stod han ret bag sengen med armene langs siden, og han sagde til oversygeplejersken, "Nå, hvordan har Erik det?" Og det var jo typisk, at man skulle ikke spørge patienten om, hvordan man havde det. Og så kiggede han jo lidt på tallene, og så sagde han, ja, men Erik, du skal nok have en halv streg mere langsomvirkende insulin, eller sådan et eller andet løg. Og så nikkede vi til det og sagde, nå, må jeg så lige høre, har du fået nogle nye biler? Og så var han bare umiddelbart så ned på knæ, og så lå vi der og legede. Jeg elskede ham. Jeg tog ham jo for en bedstefar, som jo klappede mig på hovedet og legede med mig.
I think he is a person who was dedicated to the patients and their well-being. Even though he was a tough one, he was patient-centric. One might argue that one of the strongest insulin researchers of the last century globally was Hagedorn. But I think he was also in the company quite dominant and scared away some scientists. To be honest, I think sometimes Hagedorn could be his own worst enemy.
The rivalry between the two companies continued for more than 60 years.
The first thing Harald and Thorvald did was that they made insulin in a suspension. Then in 1936, Hedorn makes his slow-acting insulin, and that way they continued competing all the way up through, improving.
There's no doubt, if you look at all the improvements, the innovations within insulin over the first century, it is Novo and Nordisk together, sometimes one, sometimes the other, that have done these. We have taken 2 out of 3 innovations to market as the first in the world.
Basically, all innovation in insulin and insulin therapy came from the dogged competition.
The ferocious fighting between the two Danish companies made both of them vulnerable to hostile takeovers from international corporations. The founders were long gone, and so was at least their personal animosity towards each other. The CEO of Novo at the time, Mads Øllesen, saw an opportunity.
Novo og Nordisk har besluttet at søge et samarbejde, har besluttet at fusionere de 2 virksomheder. Det er 2 danske virksomheder, som på deres felter er internationalt førende og som er i fremgang.
Novo was at that time, in all counts, turnover, earnings, number of people, 5 to 6 times the size of Nordisk. But if one of us had felt like underdogs, it wouldn't have gone.
The employees, they were in shock, but they also said, well, it makes sense. And it was a happy merger. It was not a takeover.
And when the organization, after the merger was in place, there were more Nordisk managers, not relatively, but absolutely in place in the new organization that there were Novo managers. I think that spoke a lot about the ability of both organizations to change and to influence each other.
What has happened is that we have taken the technologies and the way of thinking in these 2 companies in a marriage. I think that has been the best the world has ever seen within pharma, because not all marriages in the pharmaceutical industry are happy ones. I think we can take many things with us. The scientific founders' mentality of both August Krogh and Hagedorn, and actually also Marie and Kongsted, is one element. Never forget your scientific heritage, because it's all about the strongest science that will prevail in the form of new innovative medicines to treat hitherto intractable diseases. So that's one element. The other is, of course, the culture. You can never attract and retain the best people, the most talented people, and the best workforce if you do not have a strong feeling of being one group, one company, and having this caring culture that the company, I think, has always had.
That the company still acts in a way that's responsible, but it's also welcoming to new thoughts and new issues, that it's caring, but it's also ambitious. But then again, you know, that it has kept this attitude, this resolve of you must work in such a way that you don't only enrich yourself, you also enrich society.